Update on Jordan. All right, 1 second. Update on Jordan. Has she been able to do full contact practices at all? Do you expect her to play, or do you think she's going to be ruled out for Friday?
Yeah, she's been in our last couple of practices, and so the plan is to have her play Friday. She's obviously having to use these couple of days to shake off some rust basketball wise, but to me she looks good.
Oh, good. That's great to hear. Were you able to learn anything more from rewatching film study on the Los Angeles game?
Yes, a lot. Where should I start? I think the biggest thing, we were playing a hungry team. And we can talk X's and O's, we could talk rotations, we could talk about matchups, but the effort was like the glaring thing. And I think that was what was addressed. Like, sometimes you think about, what you want to show on film and watching that film. And I don't think anything was going to be productive because we just weren't doing things at a high with a level of a sense of urgency, and LA was, and we never kind of turned that corner. Their aggressiveness, their physicality, and those things kind of bothered us. But aside from that, I think we just didn't play hard enough.
And then kind of with the struggles in the post-Olympic part of the schedule here, and then even if it's just temporary, the loss of Canada and Stewie, like how do you feel like the team is maybe feeling a little bit too much pressure? Are they pressing? And I guess, have you done anything to kind of make them not feel that pressure or be able to play a little bit more loose and freely?
For sure. I think I kind of eased up on the pressure aspect a few games ago. And that's why, a couple of the games that we dropped, I felt like that we turned a corner with just our spirit and our energy. And that was like the biggest thing coming from that road trip. It was disheartening, to put your heart, mind, soul into games and kind of not be successful, and then to come back and that mental fatigue, that physical fatigue, that emotional fatigue has set in, and we kind of haven't pushed the reset button. And so, what the team is feeling is just some realistic, some realness, really, and understanding that our season was tough with Stewie, with Jordan. It's tough. Like without them, like there's some realistic, we have to be realistic about ourselves and where we are. And so I think to relieve the pressure, Jeff, I think I just been trying to make the environment lighter, understanding that it's not like not pressing and making the level of pressure high in a sense like this is an important game. Like they know, they understand. And so my job and the job of our staff is just to keep honing in, keep staying positive, keep getting better, keep watching film, working on things that we got to get better at and things of that nature, and just be as positive as possible without putting so much weight on things and hoping for the best.
Definitely. And I think last one from me. If you could have two players specifically that really step up and play elite on Friday, can you name those two players?
Jewel and Ezzy.
Jewel and Ezzy. Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Jeff. Let's go over to Jackie. Jackie, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Nice to talk to you. So I have a question for you that's from a colleague. It's not from M. It's from a different colleague. But I am on here because M can't be here. And so a colleague of mine is working on a story about who the best defensive guards, one or two guards are in this league. And so, you're obviously a coach now, and you also have been a player. So I'm curious as to who are the folks that fit that description, if it's this year or last year, or even when you were playing, of who the best defensive guards are in this league.
When I was playing, Elena Beard kind of sticks out in my mind. Tanisha Wright. Those are some elite guard defenders that just come to my mind immediately. As a coach from other teams, I think Atkins is a tough guard defender. She's physical. Brianne January is physical. Brittany Sykes is athletic and she's physical as well, and just so can cover so much ground. For my team, I think Jewel is elite. I think her defensive prowess kind of gets overlooked in a way just because of what she does offensively, and obviously Jordan has an ability to disrupt. And then I know she hasn't played this season, but Alicia Clark is elite. Just how she defends with her mind, her body, and her preparation for, you know, um, the the matchup. She learned it from obviously from Tanisha, but the way in which she prepares for Diana, the way in which she prepared for Maya, the way in which she prepared, it's elite. And I don't think people quite know that about Alicia. Like it wasn't just what you saw physically; it was her mind for her defense. And so those kind of stick out right now. And I know I probably missed some, but those would kind of be in the forefront of my mind.
And just to follow up about Breon January, because a lot of people are talking about her potentially for Defensive Player of the Year. Besides just her aggressiveness, what do you see out of her game that makes her so tough to play against?
She's you said it, aggressive, but she's like relentless. She will get in your grill, get in your space. Every possession it's almost as if she doesn't take a possession off defensively. She's in passing lanes. And I think one thing that she understands about herself is that she's a very good defender. And so when you can focus on your matchup and, not really worried about what happens on the other end of the floor, though she can knock down shots and that and things of that nature. But she knows what she has, what strengths she has defensively. And I think that impacts how she is able to defend.
Great. And one more from me. This is a bit more social justice oriented. And I know this is a little bit delayed, but speaking of Alicia Clark, actually, I believe last week at a Mystics game she was supporting them at, she was wearing a shirt that referenced pretty clearly the abortion bill that was passed by the Texas legislator. And so I guess my question is, with the social justice principles and the themes from this year really focusing on women's health inequities, I'm curious as to maybe what you've heard from what's going on inside your team and maybe around the league when it comes to trying to advocate against that.
I'm going to be the first to say I'm not the most political person.
Sure.
And so we don't, just kind of talking through with the team. It's not something that we kind of highlight on a daily basis, but I do understand the importance of the bill. I understand the importance of women's rights and women's choice. And I think, it's important that we can continue to support women in that way. We talk about legislation that impacts a variety of people. And this one in particular, I think just I'm a woman, and so I can relate to it, and having onus and responsibility and decision making over anything that happens with you and your body is very important, especially in 2021. I think we're moving into these times of like understanding the importance of individual rights. And most importantly, I am a person who lives by my heart, and I operate in a heart space. And if my heart tells me that women have an ability or need an ability to choose what they need to choose, that it's to have optimal health within their own selves, then we shouldn't take those rights away.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and let you go, Coach.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Sue's here.
All right, let's go ahead and kick it off with Jeff Brown. Jeff, go ahead.
1 second here. Let me grab my questions. How you doing today, Sue?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good, thank you. Since I didn't get to speak with you after the Los Angeles game, when the team coming out of the Olympics after the Commissioner's Cup and they played those 2 games against Chicago and New York without you or Stewie, I thought the team played really well. They were very hard fought games. Why do you think the team really wasn't able to be competitive against Los Angeles?
I think there's two ways I can go with this question. I think one way is that this is the WNBA, and any given night that can happen. Obviously, it doesn't happen every night because teams obviously prepare, they get ready, but sometimes it just happens, right? Sometimes it's that you have a team that's much hungrier than the other team, and for whatever reason, I think that is really what it felt like the other night. We're a team that, has had a rough month, and we're still trying to kind of get over the hump and get back to who we are. And I think we actually took a step in that direction, only to lose Stewie. And the truth is, Stewie's an amazing player, and any team that loses their best player, obviously there's a period of adjustment. She's also really our only true 4. So I think we're now kind of dealing with another hump to get over. So it's a combination of that, but more than anything, in this league, I learned this early in my career, and you see it every year. If you show up to a game and you're not hungry and you're playing against a team that is, that's the result that's going to happen. I think it's similar to, us playing against Washington a few nights before that. We were extremely hungry because we were trying to get back on track. We were playing a team that has had a rough year with injuries. And so sometimes these things happen.
Definitely. And then kind of, I guess you touched on that a little bit, but as the veteran leader of this team, how do you keep them focused, engaged, like not hanging their heads after Sunday's performance, and just so that they're not like feeling too much pressure of the whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about how you react, how you bounce back from these things. That's really, I think Chris Bosh in his Hall of Fame speech the other day touched on this. You know what I mean? It's not about, I mean, it's about trying to get, to the championship game and trying to achieve and win. But along the way, it's really about how you react to the adversity. So it's you can't dwell on it. You have to focus on bouncing back, and we're going to try to do that.
And then if you could name maybe 2 players that you feel really need to step up on Friday and play at an elite level for you guys to have success.
It's the whole team. There's
No.
not, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I got Coach Quinn to name some, so that's good. Okay, and then I guess last one for me. What are going to be the keys to getting that victory against Phoenix?
Excuse me. I think it's going to be about letting our defense kind of set the tone. This is a team that is clearly playing very well, and they feel comfortable, and they've got the type of players when you let them feel comfortable, they're gonna have big games. So we have to try to make them as uncomfortable as possible, stick to our game plan, and then let the offense flow from that. I think, the combination that's usually in the games that we do win and the games that we do play well, that's usually part of the formula. So just getting back to that.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue.
No problem.
Thanks, Jeff. Let's go to Jackie Powell. Jackie, go ahead.
Hey, Sue, thanks so much for being here. So I've got a few here. I have a colleague who's writing a story about who the best defensive guards are in the league right now. And so, you've played against a lot of defensive guards, and I'm just curious as to who are some folks that fit that description that you've faced as a player, and why?
Like ever, or just this year?
Could be a bit of both.
Okay. All right. I have to think. Okay. If you want to go kind of like historically,
Mhm,
I think some of the best defenders in at the guard spots
mhm,
have, at the tops of my list are Elena Beard
mhm.
for sure. I think when it's all said and done, you can make the argument she's probably the best perimeter defender. There's a lot of people who are close, but I think you could really make that argument. She can pretty much guard like all three guard spots, the 1, the 2, the 3, and just changes games. I think when a defender can change a game, usually that's an offensive player, who's coming down and dropping 30 or whatever, change it. She's a defender that can change a game. Another player that comes to mind is Katie Smith. When Katie Smith was in her prime, I just mentioned, AB being able to guard 3 positions. Katie could guard like five, like she could literally, she could guard all 5 spots. At the guard spot, she had size. Obviously there's a quickness there that, that has to be there, but she had size to really make it difficult. And then, she could switch on to post players and didn't give up much in the strength department. The combination of her size and strength really made her elite. So those are 2. I mean, I could sit here. I've played a long time, obviously, so I could pull some names. Those are 2 off the top. I think presently,
Yes.
I was really impressed during the Olympics with Ariel Atkins. I've only had to go against her, now and then. I'm a point guard, so I don't necessarily get matched up with these players. Every now and then they'll guard me. So firsthand, I've only really experienced Ariel a couple games this year, but just seeing her at the Olympics, I think she has the potential to really become a great defender in this league. She's already all defensive. And I think the more she learns, the more experience she gets, that's just going to continue to grow. And then, to me, one of the best defenders, and she just started getting the notoriety in the last couple of years, is Alicia Clark, without a doubt. Like without a doubt. I had the pleasure of watching her firsthand. And, I think she's going to be great, to be honest, for Ariel in DC, because AC is a player that really she had the tangible things, but she really started to learn like angles and just different little, there's life hacks everywhere. They exist in basketball too, just little hacks and ways to kind of use your mind and not just your body. And I think AC just got to a point where she was able to lock down anybody, and it was impressive to watch. So that's, again, I could rattle off, but I know I'm sure you have other questions. So we'll just leave it at that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the whole thing. And so speaking of AC, actually, I think it was last week, she was wearing a shirt that referenced the abortion bill that was passed by the Texas legislator. And so I'm wondering, with the social justice principles and themes for this year being focused on women's health and equities, I'm curious as to sort of what's going on within the PA or even within the Storm when it comes to trying to advocate against that and sort of create that awareness about what's going on there.
Yeah. What's interesting is I think the beauty of usually there's not that much that's beautiful about social media, but the one beauty of social media is that we all have these platforms that we can use. And I think you bring up AC, which is a great example, talking specifically about this topic, about the abortion law, I guess. It's a law, right? Like SB something. Yeah. So specifically about that. So we have players who are going to use their platforms to talk about those things. And then that kind of is usually the starting point for what could be like a league-wide initiative. But those things take time. And so right now, we're in a season, there's playoff pushes coming. Yeah. So I think what you'll see is probably more individualized in the moment. But listen, who we are. Everybody does. What we stand for. Everybody does. And something like AC, it's like you saw all the comments, all the likes, all the players are behind those things. And that's what's great, I think, about our league, is that whether it is a league-wide thing with our PA or it is just one individual player, everybody's supporting those I guess, initiatives, if you want to call them that. It's really a stance because, it's just awful. And I think if we can be a part of any kind of change in that regard, we're definitely going to be a part of that. And I love it because it puts the onus on men. There's, it takes two to tango. So what are we talking about here?
Yes, I appreciate that very much. And the final one from me is especially the fact that we're moving into the postseason. I'm really curious from your perspective as to how you think the league is approaching rivalries and what needs to happen for another premier rivalry to emerge in this league, unless you think there's one that is emerging now, because y'all had the Sparks and the Lynx that sort of has simmered down. And I'm curious as to how having something like that really helps this league grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think rivalries do happen on their own. I don't know that it's about a marketing plan to put around it. Like, it's either intense or it's not. You know what I mean? You're either in the finals playing against another team or you're not. So it's really hard to manufacture. I think it does happen naturally. Obviously, so sorry, excuse me. Through the years, you've seen them kind of come and go. You've seen them come and go. For some reason, a lot of the rivalries I'm remembering have to do with Los Angeles. I don't know what that is. It's like the beat LA chant just kind of carried over into the WNBA and a lot of teams picked up on it, whether it was an actual rivalry or not. But I think over time, things do just happen naturally. So, you brought up Minnesota and LA. Think about it. Like that happened the way it happened. It wasn't that, the league went out of their way to market it or players hated each other. It was just that two teams kept meeting in the finals. They were the two best teams in those years. And they had great series. Both went to game 5. And so it just kind of naturally happened. So it's hard to, it's hard to like pinpoint the magic formula other than I just feel like they happen naturally. And what's different about professional sports, if you wanted to like compare it to college, it's like the schools are rivals. So no matter who's playing in the game, those schools are rivals. And in the WNBA, I think in professional sports in general, with the exception of a few, with the exception of like the Celtics and the Lakers, right? Like they're always going to be, no matter who's playing, but even that can change. If the Lakers are having a down year and the Celtics are having a good year, the rivalry kind of shifts a little bit. It's not quite as intense. But in professional sports, generally, it is about players. It is player driven. So when you have player movement, it can kind of change, or maybe a retirement, or maybe a trade. It can kind of change the feeling of the rivalry. When Minnesota and LA take the floor now, those are like two entirely different teams than they were a couple of years ago. But they usually get juice. One that comes to mind that seems to be. And maybe if they meet in the playoffs again, it's like Chicago, Vegas have had these like epic playoff battles, some pretty epic regular season battles. You saw it even last year in the Wubble. They had some games that went down to the wire. Why did that grow? It just did. And that's generally how rivalries work. Well,
that one, I think it's the Hamby Heave might have started it, but yeah.
Yeah, but then, I mean, I don't want to but there was some chatter in social media between some of the players, like, you know what I mean? Like, and my point is, it just kind of happens. It's hard you can't really predict. These things just kind of happen the way they do.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Sue. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Thanks, Sue. And thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.